Hello, everyone. I'm Joan Kuroda from Hyogo University of Teacher Education. I'll be discussing reflective practice and how it influenced my teaching practices when classes suddenly went online because of the pandemic. As I was reviewing the material for the presentation, I realized two things. All discussion about reflection and reflective practice lead back to John Dewey, and the act of creating this presentation was also an act of reflective practice. I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of reflective practice and share the conceptual framework of how I use reflective practice in my teaching, the significance of teacher beliefs, and finally, how I use reflective practice to handle the sudden shift to online teaching. So what is reflective practice? It's professional development, it's practitioner research, but most importantly, it's the process of making meaning from experiences. John Dewey's How We Think is frequently referenced as the source of reflection and reflective practice. Here you can see how he differentiates between two kinds of thinking. One kind of belief is something we don't think about, or we may not even be aware of. This includes routines and rituals we just take for granted. In the other case, we find some discomfort and we start to look for reasons for why we feel uncomfortable. This process is called reflective thought. John Dewey breaks down the process of thinking into 5 steps. This is the basic framework for reflective practice. You begin with a felt difficulty. You name it, you come up with ideas, you try it, and at the end of the cycle, you decide if you accept this belief or if you reject it. Schön divides reflection into 2 types, reflection in action and reflection on action. Reflection in action are decisions and actions that happen in the moment. You hope it's an appropriate response and not a knee-jerk reaction. If you have presence in the situation, you're more likely to respond appropriately. And to develop presence, you engage in reflection, and that's reflection on action. It's reflection after the event. And it involves reflective thinking. Tan further subdivides reflection on action into performative and exploratory. Performative reflection is reflection for certainty. It's often a procedural checklist, which is a kind of guiding reflective activity. And you're using this checklist because you're looking for a solution to a problem, or you're evaluating your own work. Exploratory reflection is reflection for further inquiry. It provides space to select an outcome. You're entertaining various perspectives and interpretations. Basically, you're aiming for a better understanding and not a solution. You're opening yourself up to different possibilities and not the more narrow perspective of finding a solution. Dewey's concept of reflection clearly explains the process of exploratory reflection. It's a meaning-making process. It's a systematic way of thinking. Reflection needs to happen in a community, in interaction, or in dialogue with others. And reflection requires attitudes that value the personal and intellectual growth of oneself and others. Again, you're not looking for a solution. You're looking for a deeper and better understanding. Certain attitudes open the practitioner to engage in reflective thinking. These are directness, which is the ability to be open to possibilities, wholeheartedness, open-mindedness, and non-judgment. So being open to the possibility that your beliefs are mistaken, responsibility, and curiosity. This is the conceptual framework for reflective practice that I used for my inquiry. I began here. Investigate your doubts, be open to possibilities, observe and experiment with others, because it is a dialogic process to discover your teaching beliefs so you can make better or at least more informed decisions in the future. This is a basic model of reflective practice. So this what, so what, now what is the cycle that you'll find in many different reflective practice models. This is the model I used, which was developed by Rodgers, who is a scholar of Dewey. The descriptive inquiry is where you gather your data. The descriptive feedback is the learner's perspective, and the descriptive review is the teacher's perspective. For structured feedback, you're asking them, so how is your experience with my class? So you're asking questions, which can be in the form of reflection papers or interviews. In the descriptive review, which is the teacher's perspective, you're describing your experience, including your emotions. You're discussing this experience with your peers and facilitator, making sure that you're not giving advice or that your peers are not giving advice. So statements should begin with, I wonder or I notice. It has to happen in a community. Your peers and your experienced facilitator will help you see the same situation from different perspectives. Richards divides teacher beliefs or knowledge into two different kinds. One is subject matter, curriculum, methodology. So if you go to a workshop or a conference and you learn how to do something new, that's one type of knowledge. The underlying philosophies of teaching, that's what we're talking about when we talk about reflection. So when the first type of knowledge, subject matter or methodology, is in conflict with your underlying philosophies of teaching, that is when you're going to feel this discomfort. So that's when you can enter into a cycle of inquiry using reflection, so that you can learn how your teacher beliefs shape your teaching. And then hopefully at the end of the cycle, you'll be able to align your teacher beliefs with your practice. So I went through the reflective cycle and I became aware of some beliefs and values that I had and that I bring with me when I enter into any classroom situation. One, I think students are dependent, which is a bias. I wonder if students view me as an entertainer or an educator. I value communication with the students. So I'm always trying to find a way to communicate with them, and it can be difficult because they're so quiet. I try to be present in the classroom to meet their needs and attend to their needs. I try to create a small classroom community. And I also value an authentic experience using English. So when we went online, I really wondered how I would be able to align my teaching beliefs with this new context. Because I also believe that I'm afraid of technology. I hate technology because I'm not good with it. I worried, how will I be able to monitor the students? How can I observe them when they're online with no camera on? And how on earth am I going to be able to teach English communication skills online? I can't see them, they can't see each other. What is going to happen? And how are students going to work together or socialize, since that's such an important part of the university experience for Japanese students. So the teaching context is first-year university students who are taking a required English course. They are mixed levels, but mostly low proficiency. These students plan to become teachers, and this was the first year of the pandemic. Classes were suddenly switched to online, and we had to learn technology very, very quickly. So what happened with my concerns about communication and presence? Obviously, observation was going to be very, very difficult. But I had been using reflection papers to communicate with students, even in face-to-face classes. So I really relied on reflection papers to communicate with the students and to show that I was present. I would answer questions. I would change my classes to fit the needs of the students through information they were giving me in their reflection papers. So this is an example of a reflection prompt that I used for these weekly reflection papers. So if you see here, I'm trying to focus the students on their experience rather than a checklist of what did you do today. I'm making sure you're doing all of your work. I really wanted to know what their experience was. And for this last question, if they had any questions for me or any comments, they could write it here. They could write freely here. Mostly they asked me about whether or not I received their homework. So here are some of the comments I received from the students after their work in the breakout rooms. And you'll see here that reactions are going to be a rather common theme that I found in the reflection papers. I had taught some basic communication strategies, such as using reactions like I see or me too to respond to statements. So I could see that some students were using English to communicate with each other. And also they were noticing the difference between online and face-to-face communication. Now, my concerns about aligning my teacher beliefs regarding building a community and authentic experience, I decided to use short form videos for their assignments. This way they could get to know each other through their videos, which is an authentic experience, and it's also a format they're familiar with. I used FlipGrid, which is limited to the classroom, but also with FlipGrid, it allows video comments. So I prepared the students for their video assignment by introducing speaking templates to help them organize their content. They would practice using these in regular online classes. I also gave a pronunciation class and gave them tips on how to practice their pronunciation in their own time. This is the assignment that the students saw. If you'll notice here, I'm very strict about late assignments. And I think, to be honest, that has to do with my question on whether they see me as an entertainer or as an educator. So after they posted their videos, they wrote a post-task reflection paper. And these are the questions that I asked them. So again, you'll see this reaction becomes very important for their online communication experience. But this student also showed some empathy towards teachers who are teaching online and looking at a blank screen. Here you can see that because students were able to see their performance, they were able to notice things about their speaking skills that wouldn't be possible in a live presentation. They also learned from classmates who gave skilled and creative presentations. By using the learner's reflections, I could engage in performative reflection, evaluating my lessons. They seemed to have some anxiety about their communication because they weren't getting reactions. So I started including video comments in FlipGrid assignments as I became more comfortable using technology. So by using this slide, they could very quickly figure out how to add a video comment to their classmates' videos. I began to remind students to make sure everyone had at least 2 comments so everyone could feel included in our online classroom community. You may be familiar with this newspaper article, but in 2021, Kyoto News reported some distressing news about the lives of Japanese university students. So unsurprisingly, they were feeling stress and anxiety from the sudden shift to online classes. 47.8% say they are not aware of the progress of fellow students in their studies. You can sense the isolation the students were feeling as they studied online. By investigating my teaching beliefs through reflective practice, I think I was able to anticipate and circumvent some of the issues brought up by the article by integrating the pandemic into my syllabus and choosing a popular social media device to mediate English communication. Thank you for your kind attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me here. Thank you.